Welcome everyone, this is Simon from Battery Associates, and today we want to talk about lead-acid batteries. And actually here we are at Taihu Electric, which is the biggest lead-acid installing company in China. So they know what they're doing. They have gigawatt hours, about 2 gigawatt hours of lead-acid batteries installed and running. We want to start a bit of an overview here. And of course, one thing we can see in China is monitoring these systems. We've seen it in many other companies as well, but here there's a really impressive display showing their systems and running right now. So on the top we can see here in the number 1 in the back, if we can focus on that, 126 million kilowatt hours. And that's actually the total of discharge of these systems in this one province. There's different provinces, or I think cities, we can see here. Again, we see a lot of different metrics here, mostly focusing on the kilowatt hours of discharge of use, because that's really part of their business model, to really have these systems installed and then kind of have energy savings which are given to the company but also to them. So rather than having these industrial customers, which are most of the customers for these really large systems, they don't really pay upfront for these systems, but actually they're getting the energy from these systems. And again, they have co-investors who pay for the system. So that's something we can go more into later in some of the interviews with the leadership here talking about these. And then I think, we can see this here again. We're talking a bit about big systems, 100 megawatt hours top plus. Usually they have some smaller systems as well, especially in the earlier days. And we can see here some of kind of how they're distributed in China. What's interesting with this company, a bit different to many other companies we have visited here in China, is they're very focused on the Chinese market. They're about 7 years old. Again, they have been, have a valuation, I think, of 5 billion RMB, so really sizable, but 630 million euros. And they just raised money more recently again. They have a really big growth story, which is not too surprising for people here. It's maybe more uncommon for us. We have heard in Europe and the US in these markets. But again, in China, we have seen a massive boom of these systems and the growth of these systems. Something else, this is quite interesting here. So here we can see there's 3 different projects, and we can see essentially how much energy these systems have provided to their customers. The first one, I was told, is actually about a gigawatt hour of a project, so really big. We usually talk about gigawatt hours in production, the gigafactories for lithium-ion batteries. Here we're talking about an energy storage system, BESS, which is about a gigawatt hour for lead acid. The first one, we can see the 72 million kilowatt hours this has provided for the customer. They're all industrial customers here. I think the second one they told me is about a steel factory they're using. In the third one, actually, interesting for us as battery enthusiasts, is actually for a battery factory. So this system has provided about 25 million kilowatt hours for this battery factory. And again, there's some more metrics here. We don't have time to really go into too much detail, but megawatt hours. But really what's, I think, fascinating is here the scale. And we want to talk about with them, we already had some great discussions with the leadership, but in some interviews we want to understand better on the business side, but maybe also the technical side. What are the aspects? Why do they care so much about lead acid here? Again, lead acid has become less popular in Europe and North America, but I can already give you a hint. Safety is the big aspect. They're looking at here water-based systems, which have some advantages, particularly on the safety aspect. So that's something we also want to understand a bit better from a business side, from their customers, from these industrial customers, but also potentially maybe from a technical side. What is a bit of the innovation they're doing to, for example, extend the battery lifetime? But also interesting is what they have to do to kind of keep replacing the systems. They have some ways they're doing that. So again, these are the aspects we want to understand better through some interviews. But hopefully you're excited about a different aspect than we usually talk about. We talk a lot about lithium ion, but also in these kind of Battery Associates videos, we want to show you some of the other interesting markets related to batteries. Because with Battery Associates, we're fascinated by everything energy storage, battery system. There's different flavors, different chemistries out there, as well as, of course, different providing of energy to these systems. Again, stay with us. Let's go into some interviews. Thanks for joining. Thanks so much for taking the time, Spencer.
My pleasure.
Fantastic. So I know you're in charge of business, so we want to talk maybe a bit about business. We already had a bit of a discussion before, and really fascinating to hear your story with Taihu Electric. I think an amazing growth story over the last 7 years, so congratulations.
Thank you very much.
A lot of hard work there, and I think being one of the early players also in the stationary market in this way and growing with that asset. Again, I've also talked more with your colleague about some of the technical topics, because I think it's really fascinating also what you're doing with extending the lifetime, more cycles for that asset, etc. But yeah, maybe if you could share a bit more like the business proposition with what you're offering with this really large lead asset storage systems, and could share maybe a bit of your perspective on that for the storage market in China.
Yeah, well, this is a huge market, and our proposal to the customers, you can save the energy, money, cost, and also the system itself also can be used to take advantage of the let's say the clean energy. So the wind and solar power can be saved, can be stored in our system. So we think that this business model can be very beneficial for everybody.
Yes, and maybe to make it more concrete, because previously you shared some numbers for like existing projects and how much money you can save from this 200 plus, for example, megawatt hour project. This is something for our listeners if they're interested.
Yeah, interesting. I would say for 100 megawatt hour project, you can save at least 2.5 million RMB every year, at least. So that meaning many customers can save a lot of money from this energy storage system.
Yes, and also maybe to share, but you're very focused on the industrial sector. Really, this large-scale project, you mentioned how it has been increasing. Now you're looking at 100 megawatt hour plus, you're going to even maybe gigawatt hour sooner. So maybe what's kind of really, why is this so attractive for you from a business sense, these industrial players, rather than home storage, which other companies are trying to do?
Yeah, well, I would say the industrial side, they are more, let's say, cost sensitive. And of course, the bigger the project, the more money they can save. And for us, we have the kind of economic of scale. The bigger project, I would say, in average, let's say, the cost saving from our side is also very enormous. So we think that for small household storage system, and the money saving is not that big for each individual users. So we think that we are more focused on the bigger ones.
Very interesting, yeah. And I mean, you can see your growth. It has been a good strategy. I guess for lithium ion, we see a similar strategy with automotive, right? Where this is a big driver. Yeah. And for stationary, also been quite challenging. Maybe one last thing also on the business aspect. So one, I know you have very high recycling rates also in China. I think you mentioned something like 99.9%. Government also enforced. But also one thing I found quite interesting from the residual value of these systems. Yeah. You get through recycling. Maybe you could share a bit more about these numbers you can kind of get back through recycling.
Yeah. Well, we start from 45% of the residual value of the batteries. Now the market is going, and the supplier side, they say they can promise to give us 50%, even more. So 55%, if the recycle company can give to us, then we save a lot of money in that area. And for that point of view, we also think to have our own recycle company, because we know that the recycle residual value can be as high as 70 to 75% of the total value of the battery. So we think that this can be very workable business model also.
Which is of course significant, because we know it from lithium ion, like LFP, it's very challenging at these days to actually pay to get your lithium ion LFP batteries recycled. And again, we're looking at lithium, recovery, but again, it's not really financially attractive. So I think that's an interesting proposition. Yeah. And of course, maybe one last thing on this one also is the safety aspect, which I think, again, the upfront cost we realize is not that much lower, because we did a bit of a math based on what you shared. We're looking maybe more something like $35 per kilowatt hour roughly, which again, lithium ion is maybe going to 5 years. Your systems maybe last 5 years, so you have to swap them more often. So again, the cost is actually, not the biggest differentiator right now anymore. Yeah. Lithium ion was really high, but now it gone lower because the lithium price went lower. Yeah. So now you really talk a lot about safety and industrial topics, how this is important. So maybe we hear the similar from the West, in the US and Europe, safety is a big concern, but also interesting to hear from China as well, to hear that this is a big concern in industry.
Exactly. While talking about this, the cost in average, the lithium is already, we are very close to each other. A little difference between these two products is that we will supply the electricity constant number every year, instead of a declining of the supply of the electricity by the lithium players. But given that situation, the safety, of course, is very big concern in China. When my team went outside to talk to the customers, and together with our competitors in the lithium side, and we win the case, the projects, because very important factor or reason is the safety concern. So the customer want to be safe, and the local government say, the local mayor government say, hey, you have to be safe to build such a big, huge facility inside the companies or factories. So we think that the safety issue in China, it's for the energy storage industry is very important now.
Yes. And again, seeing the demand, you mentioned about 2 gigawatt hours already have been, installing, maybe it goes up to 2 more this year. Wishing you luck to have a productive rest of the year. And again, this is all in 7 years, which is a really fast growth area. So really, you kind of have been shaping a market, I think, there. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
And maybe also last thing, because it's a really cool background. So I think here we're seeing some of your systems, right, in operation, which again is another thing really embracing. We have seen it also in other companies. You're really embracing this digital transformation and really having this monitoring. I think so SIM cards, you mentioned all of your systems. Yeah. So again, we can see some of them live here on the background. Yeah, because we collect all the data from the site, and we do this management from our head office here. Yeah. Fantastic. Spencer, thank you so much. I know you have to catch a flight.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
I appreciate for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we want to talk a bit more about the technical aspect of lead-acid batteries. It's technology. Often we talk about lithium ion, but today we really want to focus on the lead-acid aspect. I'm very delighted to have Dr. Chun with us, who's the Vice President of Technology, and here at Taihu Electric. And one thing I found quite interesting when you talk about your systems is one of your special proposition is that you can extend the lifetime, so to get more cycle life out of your lead-acid batteries. So maybe if you could share a bit more in your history of your 7 years, like what has been the progression, how many cycles can you achieve now, where did you start, and maybe also how do you achieve this longer cycle life of your systems?
Okay, so as we know, the lead-acid battery, we use this, for example, we use the so-called partial DOD, which means we do not use the from 0 to 100 capacity as a cycle. We normally use the 30% to do 100. So based on 70 DOD this level, normally the technology can only achieve less than 1,000 life cycle. So, but we use our own battery management system. We try to enlarge the lifetime. Now we can achieve up to 2,000, so almost doubled. Yeah. So, but in the future, because the battery technology itself is in the process to advance into the long lifetime battery. For instance, right now the so-called lead carbon battery, its own life cycle can reach over 2,000. So I believe, based on our battery management technology, we can even make it even longer. We can expect more than 3,000 or 3,500 life cycle is possible.
Well, that's interesting. And you mentioned, because if you mention about this 2,000 or something up to 2,000, and we think about, like annual use, we should 1 discharge a day, let's say, right? So then we get maybe about 1,500 for 5 years. Yes. And you mentioned about these 5 years as a kind of a number where you kind of have to swap the current system. Yes. So if you could extend this further, then you have less often to swap the system, which of course attractive financially.
Yeah, for sure. Longer lifetime, more financially is better than the short lifetime, for sure. And Right now we use, for the user side, the battery use is one charge and one discharge every day. But in the future, because the new energy, the clean energy requires more charge within a day. So this is our challenge. So the longer time, lifetime battery for sure can meet this kind of requirement in the future, which means multiple charge and multiple discharge in one day is possible.
And if you could maybe also share a bit more here in China,
Yes.
how does this quickly work? I know it's a bit more on the business side, but just for our listeners, because like why do you do the discharge? How does it financially work? Because to stabilize the grid, you say it gets more often maybe.
Okay, sure. There's several different model or several different pattern we can follow. For instance, for user side the application, because the electricity price is different. So during the evening time, the price is quite low, and during the daytime, particularly in those time which is we call the peak time, the price is about 4 times of the evening time. So we can actually charge during the evening time and discharge in the daytime. So we can make the profit for this time price difference and also the time difference. So also there will be in the grid side, there's a requirement for, because the new energy or green energy, which is not stable, which fluctuate during the day. So every time they find that the unstable or fluctuation happens in the grid, they requires more energy source from other side, other than the power or wind, to support the grid, to make it balanced. So at that time, the energy storage can give its own contribution to the grid.
Fantastic. And maybe a bit from a technical aspect, right here we see some of these lead acid batteries. You're currently not producing the lead acid batteries yourself, but you buy them.
Yes.
And of course, being in this region, you have the biggest lead acid producers,
Yes.
so that's close to you. But also, if you could maybe talk a bit about the cooling. You spoke about liquid cooling, it's important.
Okay.
If you could maybe share a bit more about that.
Okay, as you can see, those are the battery we purchased from our supplier, which is a very low cost battery, traditionally used for the e-bike. So this battery, we asked our supplier to do some further improvement based on our requirements, so make it the performance which match the energy storage requirement. So in this project, which is the whole capacity is 1 gigawatt hour, so which contains 4 million pieces of this battery, like this, yeah, in total, yeah. So we use a liquid cooling system to cool the battery down, to maintain the temperature into a certain range during the charge and discharge process. And also we revolutionary to change the whole structure. We don't use a container. So traditionally, lithium battery use a container to make a battery like a section by section, and in our project, we don't use a container, so save the material for the container. So we pack and pile the battery inside a certain building. So this building actually is about 20,000 square meters. Oh, yeah, 20,000 square meters. And actually contains 4 million batteries. And every day we can generate 1 million kilowatt hour electricity to discharge 1 million kilowatt hour, yeah, one day, yeah. So what's the...
No, that's great, and I think that's really helpful. Maybe two questions also there. So one, you mentioned a carbon anode. You're using more on your lead acid.
Yes.
You could maybe share how is this different to like the more conventional lead acid? Maybe people know.
Okay, sure.
The car
Yes.
battery.
So we call this a carbon lead battery Compared with the conventional lead-acid battery, we add some carbon elements into anode, which brings the two benefits. And one is to reduce the internal resistance, so makes the battery is less generate heat during the charge and discharge process, so more efficient. And secondly, is it can increase its lifetime somewhat. Yeah.
Fantastic. And maybe then also a big aspect, and I spoke to your colleague also from a business aspect, is safety. You have a lot of interest in these systems, you win big tenders because you offer the safety at the large scale. If you maybe could share a bit more about why is lead acid more safe than LFP lithium-ion batteries?
Okay.
For storage, storage
yes. We can say lead battery is a water-based battery. So there's no flammable material contained inside the battery system. So we can call it, it's a fundamental safe system. So that's the base. And secondly, we manage the whole system during our cooling system, during our safety system. We can manage it to this whole system to zero accident. Yeah.
That's very impressive, and especially on the stationary, again, we hear this in other markets has been quite challenging there as well. And maybe one thing is also, because again, we talk a lot about lithium ion, but you're actually quite bullish about lead acid. You are quite confident there will be more growth in the market also for lead acid.
Yes.
So maybe if you could share a bit more, like where is this coming from? We already have some ideas based on what you shared. And how big do you think maybe this lead acid market can still get for these kind of use cases?
Okay, for instance, I believe right now, for instance, in China, the electrochemical battery energy storage market, the majority is lithium-ion battery. It's dominant. And the lead battery is about a few percent market share. But we believe in the future, maybe in the next few years, this share for lead battery can increase up to 25%. And depends on the battery, lead battery itself, the development of itself. If the lead battery, its lifetime can enlarge further, I believe even we can make more market share, maybe over 50%.
That's for this use case, for the big stationary systems.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, and then maybe as a final question on the technology side as well as, you mentioned you're also interested in other water-based safe energy storage systems such as zinc.
Yes.
You have some research there. So maybe if you could maybe share a bit more about that, why you're looking at that technology and topics like that.
Okay. Right now we are working together with several universities, a scholar over there. We research on the different battery system. For instance, which is also water-based, which means the safe, which is safe. And for instance, we working with zinc nickel battery or zinc magnet battery. And these two systems, it can also working, the performance is better than traditional lead battery. And also in the future, what we need to do is further reduce the cost, make it a more stable, a longer lifetime. Currently, we have several prototypes in the lab for testing.
Yeah. Fantastic. Really appreciate these insights.
Okay,
really appreciate
thank you very much.
Thank you much. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for joining us on this journey, talking about lead acid batteries. I hope you enjoyed it. We were here in China talking to the biggest company for stationary energy storage with lead acid. We learned a lot. And there's many other things we couldn't discuss today, so please put any additional questions in the comment. We actually have much more data and insights we gathered through this journey here, so please be in touch there. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube video. It really helps us to grow the channel and give you really interesting insights in these regions where there's a lot happening in the battery space. It was a bit of a different story because today we didn't look at lithium ion, which we do often, but again, we could really see from the scale there is an interesting use case here on lead acid, so I hope you enjoyed that. And yes, with this was Simon from Battery Associates. We hopefully talk to you very soon, and thanks for watching today.